Tired of the hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Your Ultimate Life, the podcast dedicated to helping people create a life of legacy, purpose, prosperity, and joy, doing the things they love and want to do. This episode is one of the Thursday special episodes that we started a few months ago, concurrent with the book that I wrote, or that Joy and I wrote, Coaching and the Rise of AI. And in that book, it kind of came as an interesting thing. At the beginning of last year, I started my mastermind to help people write books, and I told them I'd write a book with them, and I started writing one. And then a month into it, I realized I needed to write a different book, and that was Coaching and the Rise of AI. And concurrent with that release, what I'm noticing is that coaches, by and large, aren't taking this seriously. So I still, even as recently as a month ago, saw an ad of somebody on a beach, sitting in a beach chair, become a life coach, make money from everywhere, that kind of thing. And that kind of stuff is going to be toast. So today, usually on these Thursday episodes, I have two guests. Today's a special one. I have with me as a guest, Joy Fluckiger, who is, yes, my wife, but she's more importantly in this context, my business partner, and most importantly, the co-author of this book. Joy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. Well, after we'd done several months of these, I thought, we need to get the author on here and talk about your view. And you also own the publishing company. Yeah, that published it. So what do you think? Like just sort of a free form question. What are you thinking about when you think about, this book, coaching, AI? I mean, you use it a lot. So talk about how you see it impacting this industry.
Well, when you first started looking into this, and you've talked to various coaches, and there's some coaches that very well-known coaches who have retired and who, they're done. They've done how many years of whatever, and other coaches are starting to, high performance coaches, they're starting to change the way they do business, change the focus of their business. And many of them are not really coaching or teaching people how to become a coach. Now, in the old days, whatever it was, 20 years ago, Kellan, when you took a program to learn how to be a coach, it was an in-person event. You went a couple of times because now you're a certified master coach. And it was along the lines of processes and forms. And I don't know that was really coaching, because when I think of coaching, having coached sports, I look at it from that perspective. Now, from a sports perspective, you're at the top of your game. You're going to the Olympics. The Olympics are starting shortly. Well, when this episode is out, the Olympics will be already going on. Those people still need coaches because they're coaching something that AI really can't do. So, for example, I coached figure skating. So a little bit you can. I can put into an AI prompt and say, how do I perfectly execute, or how do I teach my student how to perfectly execute XYZ jump or XYZ spin? I can get all the technical stuff of, okay, you have to have your body centered, your arms, in those technical pieces. But the coach helps you to see what the books or the pieces of paper or a PDF or whatever it is can't coach you. So the AI can't coach you to how you feel when you take off on that jump. The AI isn't there to say, ugh, you're a little tilted. Yeah, that And immediately the coach can see that that's going to be an epic fail. Now, an experienced sports person, an experienced skater, can adjust and readjust, and often they can correct because they have enough experience to do that. Now, when we translate that into something in, let's say, the life coaching industry or the business coaching industry, it's similar. You have these processes and you have these forms that AI can do really, really, really well. You know, another person, down the block, I want to be a coach. They can figure out and they can punk stuff in Chat GPT or Gemini or whatever program, and they can get a series of things and they can say, okay, gee, I'm going to be a coach now. That's like a basic level. The direction that we're moving, people aren't going to pay for that. If I can get it from AI, why am I going to pay somebody else to do it? The coach has to be the person who transcends that, who gets over that, and they're coaching something that AI absolutely cannot do. So the emotion, the feeling, the nighttime, maybe some people, coaches take calls from their clients at night. So, it's those inner things that an AI at this point can't do. And actually AI is starting to do this, but it's moving so quickly. But I think it's moving so quickly that it's almost feels like it's stopping or slowing down because the majority of coaches just aren't keeping up. And the majority of coaches aren't making a living wage. How many coaches do I know that they're a coach, but they have a full-time job? Well, then they're not really a coach, are they? When it comes down to it.
Well, you said something really important, and I know you have a lot more to say and especially because of your personal experience as a sports coach, skating and figure skating and stuff like that. You said something that's really important. This is one of the reasons I wanted to have you as an author on here. Everybody talks about what AI can't do, but your illustration with the perfect steps and video even and PDF and all the rest will never substitute for someone there with you to listen, and in your case, as you described the skater, to look. Subtle tilts and microscopic hesitations before the jump that represent uncertainty.
It really is. And it is microscopic.
Yeah, and so that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's so easy to understand when you relate it to a physical thing like a snowboarder or a skater or we're talking winter sports because we're in Canada, I guess, but whatever. That thing, that essence, and what passes for coaching today, and the prediction we made in the book was that by Christmas, which is only 10 months from now, or 11, I guess, 95% of coaches won't make a living. Well, most coaches
I don't think they are now.
Most coaches, well, the numbers are different.
The numbers are different,
The difference will be that middle, all that middle where they're making 50, and we define, a living as $100K just because that's what it takes to make a living. U.S., $100K U.S., $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
Most are not. By far the most are not. No. But that whole middle tier where they're making 50 and 40 and 60, that's all going to be eliminated because what passes for coaching now, and you're free to disagree, but this is the thesis I have, is going to disappear because all that middle tier is this lame, formula-driven process set of things where you go through, NLP and listed. I mean, in the book, we did an analysis of 11 different modalities, and most of them didn't fare very well.
No. Well, and a lot of people like to throw this stuff out like the brain and NLP and all these fancy highfalutin terms that people with lots of degrees have had, and they think, well, they know it all. They're the coach. Yeah. I know several high performance coaches. Maybe they have a degree, maybe they don't, but they have something that school can't teach. And there's a lot of things that school can teach. The technical it's just like going to design school. I went to design school at university. Was my background in my field. And I can even give a sports example too. So in design school, you learn the particulars. You learn how to draw something that's perfect, that looks like grass, or that looks like a texture that when you look at the picture, it's like you can feel it, even though it's just on a piece of paper. So you can teach those things, but not everybody can execute them. Not everybody has that eye to say, okay, this in design world, this is me, I envision this. Not everybody can do that because they don't teach that at design school. They teach you the techniques, they teach you things about space, they teach you all sorts of, fonts and all sorts of things in design, but they can't turn you into a world-class designer. Frank Lloyd Wright, he had to get an engineer, somebody else, to sign off on his drawings because he wasn't certified to do that. But yet many people would consider him to be one of the greatest architects of all time. And so the book smarts and these other things, specifically the books, don't always translate. Sure, you can have a good background and a good, for your own self, but that rarely translates into dollars. And I think maybe people use these letters behind their name. I'm not slamming, I've been to university too, so have you. But to highlight that's not what impresses people today. What impresses people today are results. If I pay you XYZ, am I going to get that result? I don't want to care about how much you scream on social media and, it's all wonderful and roses and step into your being and step into your greatness. I personally don't even know what the hell that means. I hear the words, in English, I hear what those words are, but in terms of what do I get? What is my result? Nobody is able to really define that. And I'll give you an example of a lady that I met, and she's in the similar industry as I am, and she wanted to charge a lot of money for doing whatever it is she did. And she was trying to kind of, sometimes you and I, Kellan, when we get on a call with some people, a little bit of good cop, bad cop, and I'm always the bad cop. I ask those hard questions and I sit there and then I ask not even a hard question, but a question of, okay, I'm going to give you $10,000 a month. And what is my benefit? What am I paying for? I asked several times and she couldn't articulate it. So her, as a coach, could not articulate to me as a potential client what I would receive. She couldn't answer that question. And I gave her several opportunities and roundabouts and all this, and she struggled. So she's going to be one of those.
Yeah, you weren't doing it as a gotcha. You were genuinely
I wasn't.
curious.
I was genuinely concerned or interested. It's like, oh, okay, what do I get? Well, we talk a couple of times. That's exactly how it felt. It was like, well, we talk a couple of times and I'll, give you strategies for what? Like what? Okay. And the thing is though, what's annoying is that people fall for this. They're suckered into this, they pay the big bucks, and then, they have nothing at the end. So then that for a long time probably taints their view of coaches, the coaching industry, and how they're a bunch of scammers. And a lot of it, that part of it is true. But then there's the good ones like you and some of the other people that in the circles that you travel in now, they're legit and they do cost a lot of money, but they're worth it because you do see a result. Maybe not immediate because, there has to be that inner transformation of people, and that doesn't come cheap and that doesn't come easy, and it's a lot of work. But, people have to decide for themselves what they want.
So if you think about the examples that you know in your life from being a coach, both a coach as a publisher, a coach as a sports figure, a coach in lots of ways, and you think about what AI can do, and it's going to gut out the whole middle. Anybody that deals in frameworks and tools and formulas and this, and that, and the other, they're toast. They're off the board. So do the best you can, because that lady, the one particular, but she's not alone, could not articulate
Nope.
what that mystical something is. Yet those that are in the 5% that are left, 95% are going to be out of business. And I mean out of business. I don't mean stumbling around at the 50K. I mean gone.
Yeah.
Because AI for $30 a bit. Tony Robbins just released a Tony Robbins coach for $99 a month. And I know 3 or 4 coaches right now that are high-powered coaches that either doing or have a clone. We're doing one.
And you're doing one.
We're going to make it available.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
then my question for you to think about, because, I've opined on this a lot, but what is that magic thing that makes it worth paying $10,000 a month or some other extraordinary number versus $100? What is that?
Here, I'm going to refer to this book, and I just happened to open it just randomly right now. Chapter 20, Cultivating Presence. I'm going to just read this first sentence here. Presence is not a switch you flip. It is a frequency you train, a quality you embody. Presence. Chapter 20. That is something that you're not going to get in a bot. A bot will say, oh, you're so wonderful. Yes, you can. You can do it. And that's good for $20, $100, whatever it is a month. But it can't give you that. That's what a coach does. That's what a high performance coach provides. Stillness is a skill. An AI model that's not what they do. They give you facts and figures and spreadsheets, and I use it every day. I use AI every day to create these things for myself and to make things easier for my clients, to help me help them. And so I use AI as a framework, as an outline, as a basis for creating stuff, and whatever it is, checklists, spreadsheets, all these things that my clients use every day to help them get their book published. So I have these little things. But there's other things that I do that the AI just can't get across to people. That, the human interaction is really important in that piece. So I think that's one big piece. I don't know if you agree with that or if there's something else that you feel.
I completely agree with it. You know that in the book we're proposing.
Chapter 15. The bedrock is love. Sorry, the field AI cannot enter. And, and that's why it feels like I'm hawking just wanting to sell this book. I'm not, but I am. Gems, that people, if they stopped and just process this, but that's going to take a little bit of time. So if you're a coach, you have time to morph, to change, to transform, to transition to either something else or get to the 5%. But you got to start now. It's January, because what are you saying? December 2026?
Yeah.
That's, what? Christmas is on the way. That's going to come around very quickly. And if you're procrastinating and if you think, well, he's full of shit, what am I going to listen to him for? Go ahead. But, history will determine as to whether you are or not.
There's 2 things I noticed in the list. Now, we got extra stuff, so you can buy the book on Amazon, but we're going to start selling the book on our own website. And the reason is because we've got lots of extras. And one of the things I noticed you put in there is an assessment about where you are as a coach. And what was good in that assessment was a timeline. If you're this score, you have 6 to 12 months or you're dead. Yep. If you're this score, you have 12 to 18 months or you're dead. If you have this score, you have 18 to 24 months or you're dead as a coach. Yeah. And I'm saying it bluntly. And so those things are valuable. I've thought of 3 things.
It has to be blunt. It has to be blunt, and powerful, and say it out loud, because this, dancing around the edges and not really being bold and even controversial about it, nobody's going to act or react. We want to have an action and a reaction in people to do something, whether you get some backlash on social media telling you don't know what you're talking about, or, gee, what do I do to, proof myself? Like there's a lot of things people can do. And I think being bold and controversial is step number 1, at least for us, to say, look, guys, that train is coming. that it's left the station and it's already on its way. Do you want to get on, or do you just want to watch it and think there'll be another one coming? There's not another one coming.
So there's
I don't know
three
if that's an
things that I
analogy or
think,
not.
no, it's fine. There's three things that I think get in the way of coaches
Yeah, I'm going to write them
getting
down.
getting in the way. Number
Yep.
one is what I call the head in the sand problem. And
Oh my
that is
gosh.
people that don't want
Totally.
to admit that this is
Yep.
happening. They say things like, well, a coach can't be human, and I've already got that human connection, and so that's enough. You know
Yeah.
what? If you're a coach and you've got a human connection, it depends on the fabric of that connection. It
Yeah.
depends on, how that interaction goes, how much excuse do you allow, and lots of other things.
Oh yeah.
And so
Yeah.
head in the sand is like, yeah, I've already got the human connection. It won't bother me. Anybody that says that is already dead. You're off the board. The second thing is what I
Yeah.
call the anti-problem. And the way I describe this is you got a casino and it's got all these blackjack tables, and you're a coach, you walk in, you want to play. And you notice that all the $10 tables are full, and they're full of robots. And the
Yeah.
only place you can park your butt down is in the high roller room, and the sign over the door says the ante's $10,000. The ante to get in
Yeah.
this game just went up. Now, whether it went
Yeah.
up by 1,000 times or some other number, I don't even care. But it went up, and you got to understand and own that.
Yeah.
The third thing that gets in the way of people is this human interaction. It's grounded in love. It is focused on leadership. You
Yep.
think the sports coaches, football or basketball or other coaches that cause teams to do extraordinary things, you think they are not representing truth? Of course they are. If you're going to be a successful coach, you got to be the embodiment. You got to be the obvious product of what you teach. You can't talk about a thing. So the third thing is that's a hard mountain to climb. You got to be on purpose on the way up the mountain of growth yourself all the
Yep.
time. So those are the
You
three
do.
things: a head in the
Yep.
sand, anti-problem, and this is a hard climb. So what do you think about those things?
Well, I think it's not just about coaching. People say that with a lot of things. I mean, when the telephone first came out, oh my gosh, it was like, ooh, yeah, resistance. People, inherently, I think, resist that type of change. And they resist it probably even harder, louder, longer, whatever the words are, when it directly has a result on their income and their bottom line and their entire livelihood. I think if they took the time to reflect, and this is a hard thing to do for a lot of people because everything we move fast, fast, but I do it fast, 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 fast. But you need that time by yourself, alone, dark room, I don't care, sauna, spa, whatever it is, to be able to think and process. And that space that you give yourself to do that, you can look at, gee, am I in this head in the sand thing? And sometimes it may take a while for a person or not to come to a conclusion that, yeah, I see it coming, kind of thing. And then there may be a bit of regret that, well, I should have got on the bus or train, 3 stops earlier. And then the anti-problem. The anti-problem is number 2 for me. This is almost like, yes, the pinnacle and probably what a lot of people would focus on, because if the ante just went up to $10,000 and all the robots are sitting at the $10 tables, there's no room for you at those $10 tables. And then the masses of people who want that $10 problem are paying that $10. The people who are paying, a $50 problem, a $100 problem, a $1,000 problem, they're all still sitting at that $10 table. The real movement, when you have that $10,000 ante, that's when you start to see what people are made of, what people can create, what people can do, whether as a coach, you're coaching in this person, this group, whatever, and whether it's leadership or other types of coaching. That really, you start to separate, the bots from the humans and those people who are really successful. And, I guess the third one is part of that is to be, are you all in? most of us aren't all in on things. We're dabble here and we dabble there and we do a little bit, and everything's sort of like done half-assed. It's not really done to the best of a person's ability. They jump around like all those, like I always say, like those unfinished craft projects. You move on to the next one, then move on to the next one. You bunny hop over everything, but your head is somewhat still in the sand. Maybe you don't want to pay the ante, and you're not really all in, and that mountain is hard to climb. But whoever said it was easy? Shit is hard. You think those guys making the first vehicle or who made the wheel or whatever, or look at Ben Franklin. I just had listened to a really interesting podcast about Ben Franklin and all the stuff that he created. And it's just like the first library. Oh, okay, let's create a library. Oh, okay, it was just, that mindset. I think too often today we're almost conditioned or trained. It's like, that's okay, the government will take care of you, or it's all right, you don't really, it's hard, you don't have to do that. But that's not the direction of what makes a society fantastic and nourishes our culture and who we are, whatever country you live in. Those outliers, those entrepreneurs, those crazy types, they influence and are influenced by awesome and great coaches who have upped the ante for themselves and for the people that they coach. And if you want to be a coach, you can be satisfied with just being, giving ChatGPT answers to someone. But I think you're going to find, now I love ChatGPT, I'm not saying anything bad about it, but if you're going to be that person who's just focused on providing that level of advice, why do I need to pay you? I'll just have a $25 subscription or whatever it is, and I'll get all the answers I want all the live long day. What you find then is that specifics people will pay for then. Whatever comes out as a result of that, somebody will come to you to pay for that service, whatever it may be. And it may not even be about coaching. So you got to think a little bit beyond that of how do you see yourself retooling what you're doing? What is your background before you came into coaching? Were you a communications expert? Were you an engineer? So you're going to have to really look in yourself and find ways how you can retool, or you will be, welfare.
So you said something that I think is really interesting. People say, oh, I don't really have to do it. I don't really have to work that hard. It's too hard. Somebody, government, whoever, going to take care of me. And the answer is yes.
Yes.
They will, and they are, and you're going to live a mediocre ass life, and you're going to be unfulfilled, and you're going to realize you could have done something, and you're going to ask yourself at the end, what if I would have tried? What if I had leaned in? And so that is available.
Yeah.
Nobody says you have to do this. What I'm calling out, what we are calling out in the book, is what is required to get to the 5%. If that's too high of a hill, fine. But
that's fine. This isn't for everybody. Go ahead.
It's not for everybody. Go right ahead. Exactly.
And read it. You know what? Read the book and give it to somebody who you think maybe will be able to benefit and who will be the one to rise above. That probably would be a better use of their time. Fine, don't use it. Give it to somebody who you think will.
Right. So what I want you to do as you're listening to this is, if you'd like the extras that are involved in this, I don't think the page is up, but it will be shortly. Send an email.
No.
Send an email that you want to buy it. No,
nope.
Don't send an email.
No.
Wrong. What would you like?
Go to the website. Go to kellanfluckiger.com. Go to Kellan's website. I'll have the link in the notes. Go to the books tab. Look for the book, Coaching and the Rise of AI. Buy it directly from us, and you're going to get some special bonus material that will not be on Amazon, will not be through any other distribution channel. Why? Because those NFC stickers and that special material and those programmed stickers are only available in a physical book. I have a sticker right here. These stickers are going to go in this book. When you hold your phone near the book, a page will pop up. You'll get this bonus material. This is brand new material. It's not in the book. Kellan is creating this especially for people. That sounds like an infomercial. So I had a comment one time. Somebody said, sounds like the shopping channel. I love the shopping channel, right? I get my best tips from, but really, I'm not trying to sound like the shopping channel, but it really is something that not a lot of people are doing. People aren't doing bonus material and NFC stickers and all this stuff. 2 years ago, Kellan, when you spoke at a conference, there was a lady there who was offering this type of service for 10,000 US dollars. You don't have to pay $10,000 for this kind of stuff. This is what we're talking about, how fast things are moving. Who would have thought like $10,000 and you're like, it didn't really work that well, to today where it's starting to become more normal. And I can guarantee you that early adopters of this kind of technology, the material that's in this book, the material that Kellan talks about all the time, is going to change the way you think, is going to make a difference in your life if you choose to accept it. You don't have to. You can just listen to this podcast and give us some feedback saying we're all full of crap. Go ahead. It doesn't matter. But the train is still rolling, or the bus, or whatever mode of transportation. It's still moving along. So, but yes, go to the website, kellanfluckiger.com. We'll have it in the show notes. We'll have it on the, our text where we promote it pretty much everywhere, on our blog post even as well. And there'll be a link to buy the book. We'll send you that book with that sticker and that bonus material. And it's not just one and done. You say, yeah, okay, what about next year? You're going to new stuff. What's happened? We're going to update it. So that link will be live forever. And it's your link only. You can't share it with a bunch of people. So one sticker, one book.
So I want to go to a different
That's what I would
topic
do.
now. Please do.
Am I sounding too preachy? Am I sounding too?
Well, I don't even
5
care.
minutes
This is about what you think, right?
This is a commercial, right? This is
all
the
right. So
commercial
brought
part
to you
of it.
by the Coaching and the Rise of AI. But that's the whole point of this Thursday episode.
Oh,
so
yes.
I always ask the coaches, and you particular, you use it every day, you like it, it helps you, it does this, that, and the other. What do you see as the dangers, the cautions, the worrisome things about
just with
this
AI
platform?
or related to coaching or just in general?
Well, I don't want to get onto people getting into death spirals and doing weird stuff.
No.
We're not talking about that.
No.
We're talking about what do you see as the pitfalls or possible pitfalls for AI in the context of coaching?
I wonder if at some point do you get a false sense of security? Because the AI model is built so, your output is only as good as your input. That's kind of been whatever with computers, your input, your output, garbage in, garbage out, that kind of stuff. So if you are involved with AI models, and if you're asking things in a way that would lead the answers to say, you're right, forget about all that crap, you're going to get that. So you're going to be lulled into this numbness and this false sense of security without that urgency. But if you're looking from a place of, I'm a coach, it's February in a couple of days, 2026, I'm making $1,000 a month as a coach. I want it to be a $10,000 a month coach. Am I going to be out of business? Am I that 95%? And if I am, what do I need to do starting today to change that? Now, putting those kinds of prompts into an AI model, you're going to get a different answer as opposed to saying, I'm a coach. I like what I'm doing. Surely I'm not going to, that all that stuff about rubbish about coaches is going to be gone. And so if you ask those types of leading questions, it'll probably lead you where in your mind you want to be safe. And it'll be, okay, yeah, that's great. But if you ask the harder questions, the ones that force you to do an action to transform, that is different. So then you can take those answers and say, okay, right? And it all comes down to also your background, what you like to do, what other things you could see yourself doing, how are you going to pivot? And if it's true that 95% coaches will be out of business, do you create a bot? Or are you going to be one of those people who just provides those, PLR materials and sell them for $1 on a website? People make a lot of money doing that too. But what are you going to do? You, you may have to do some research and see what the end game is. What is the end game? And you may ask your AI model that too. This is where I am, and be honest, right? You got to be honest because you're only going to get the responses that are based on what you put in. So if you say, okay, I said I was making $1,000 a month, but I'm actually, as a coach, I'm honestly making $500 a month as a coach. That's not enough to live on. My husband is making this, whatever it is. I got a side hustle. You got to be honest with all of your inputs and ask, or state what you would like the result to be. If you want to be an XYZ person coach, then you really have, you got to step up your game. A dollar spreadsheet isn't going to get you there. That's for darn sure.
So
it's
this
kind of
is
a
the thing you've
roundabout.
identified. No,
Yeah.
you've identified one clear thing, and that is lulled into a false sense of security
Yeah.
and getting answers that reinforce what you want, as opposed to asking questions that are contrarian, difficult, asking for hard things,
Yeah.
etc. So I have an example. I want you to think if there's any other pitfalls you want to mention, but I want to give an example first. So I'm getting ready to do a concert. This episode is going to drop on February 12th, if our schedule stays true, and the concert's on Wednesday, February 18th. I'll be putting it on social, and I'm inviting you to it. But the reason I'm mentioning it is in the songs that I've written, and I have a ton of them in commercial release, some of them tell stories from the books that I've written and stories about struggle and overcoming and, coachy stuff, right? And so I went into Chat GPT and I told him I'm going to do this concert. There's 9 songs. I'm going to tell stories between each one. So the concert's an hour, a little over, maybe 60, 70 minutes. And I wanted it to help me write some narration. And it led me down a path exactly like this. And it told me it was powerful and wonderful. And I gave it all the lyrics to the songs, and it can't really listen yet. So it did from the lyrics, and it did a pretty good job. But it led me down a path of do it this way. Don't do these things. Do this on purpose. You know what? I took it to a Hollywood A-list vocal coach that I have.
Your coach,
I've had for years. My coach. That is, like I said, Hollywood A-list vocal coach, been helping me for years do this, and did the concert for him, including those scripts. And I didn't have them all memorized, so I had to read them a little, so they weren't perfect in terms of pacing and intent and everything. But he saw right through all that, and he said, the songs are good, your performance is good, all that writing sucks.
Yeah.
It's wrong. It's completely missing the point. You're not going to connect with your audience.
Yeah.
And so here's the interesting thing. It gave me something that was moving. I read it. It felt connecting and everything else. And he said, yeah, but it's not going to work. And he's a seasoned, Broadway guy, Hollywood guy, movie guy, has had A-list celebrity, et cetera, et cetera. I say all that because he's a high roller in terms of that skill. And so this is an example of being just led down the wrong path.
Yeah. But you didn't even know it.
Very convincingly.
Yeah.
And I had to go to a real coach and say, here's what it is. What do you think? And he was diplomatic as hell and said, bleh, and vomited on the table.
But isn't that cool though? Because you were convinced it's like, oh yeah, I'm all tuned up. I mean, then I'm just going to get some reinforcement from this guy, my coach. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, no, full stop. This is terrible. I wasn't there, so I don't know the exact words, but that's the point really about getting lulled into that false sense, thinking that AI in that term is going to solve all of your problems. And this is an example of where failed and you needed the coach. Now, this is not just some coach from down the block. I mean, he's coached the names, right? And then the TV programs that he's been on. So it's like he's a dude, and you listen to him because, he has those creds behind. He is all that. And so I think people, again, if they're just relying on that, are also going to get lulled into that false sense of, oops, and it's going to be an epic fail, and then they're going to be further, behind the 8 ball. So what do you do? What's the proof?
let's answer that question right now
Yeah.
as our last sort of thread here. If you're a coach listening to this right now, and you're even willing to entertain the possibility that some major stuff has got to change or you're dead, you're finished, you're out of business. I mean, you might be hearing this and you might already be one of these 5%, and you know, but if you're not making at least 150 or 200K, you're not there.
Yeah.
If you're making 60, 50, 40, 80, you're not there. Okay? And you can be mad at me for saying so, and that's just me talking. I got it. But if you want to survive, you got to be somewhere else. So if I ask now, Joy, as one of the authors who also edited, published, so you're very familiar with not only what you did, but what I did and what we did together, what are the steps? What do I need to do as a coach who's heard this and even entertaining the possibility that, holy crap, I need to do something right now? What do you think are those steps?
You have there's an interesting part in the book, and I refer to the book because, it's part of what we're talking about too, where you talk about the refiner's fire. And then you further talk about, and you talk about this all the time, becoming versus performing. And the surface stuff is performing. Now, of course, when you're performing, there are some expected norms about how you speak, your presence on camera, all these kinds of things. If you're, let's say, leading a group or a group coaching or something, there is that. But what's more important, and I think this is where a lot of coaches fail, is that they don't embody the stuff that they talk about. And that's where, like, I refer back to that woman that I spoke of, where she thought she had this higher anchor on me, and then when I dug a little bit deep, she melted. So it's that, so that she wasn't that person who commanded, in my opinion, that price, that coaching fee. We were talking in terms of a collaboration. I was going to see her at her conference, but she never went, that kind of stuff. So, it's the becoming versus the performing, that refiner's fire. So you have to become that person. The fake it till you make it. No, there's no more faking it till you make it. That's 90s talk. That's old. There's no more faking it till you make it. Whatever you are, wherever you are, however you want to be, it has to be, we keep throwing that word authentic out. Maybe you have to look up that definition of what it means to be authentic, and how do I become authentic? And the first part of that is to tell the truth, where you are, where you've been, what you want, where you're going. Tell the truth. People can see, especially online, especially on video, when people say the words and you're like, they don't believe it. Like, you just know. They don't have to say anything, but it's subtle. And if you're paying attention, you'll say, yeah, I don't think so. And that type of stuff rings true. So becoming versus performing, I think, is a key. But then you think of steps. What are the steps to do that? I don't do that, Kellan. You're the master of that kind of stuff. So what would you tell people to do? What's their first step into becoming that 5% and not becoming the 95%? What do you tell them?
Step one, I would say step one is have an honest conversation with yourself about whether or not you're willing to change. Number one, are you willing to do this?
That's it.
Because it's not easy and it's not working. If you're not making over 100K,
yeah.
or you're working 90 hours a week to do it, you're gone.
Yeah, that's
true.
Gone. Yeah.
So number two, read the book. Not because I'm trying to sell books, but because it's the only book out there that's talking about this, that will tell the truth about what's happening. So get an honest assessment.
But the thing, Kellan, sorry, I interrupted you, is that
it's fine.
That's the thing. Like, so people who don't know you are going to think, oh yeah, whatever, I'll listen to this guy. But people who do know you, that's why when people are in trouble, when the shit hits the fan, when whatever happens out there in the world, I mean, you have helped people that you haven't spoke to in years. And who do they call? They call Kellan. And why do they call you Kellan? Because they know you're not going to sugarcoat, you're not going to bullshit them, you're not going to just tell them what they want to hear, you're not going to you're not going to do any of that. And that's why years ago you were called the execution mentor. And some people took offense to that term because they're like, I don't want an execution mentor. I want nice, warm, and fuzzy. Well, then get a squishmallow and hug that. It's cheaper and it'll make you feel good for a little while. Get a dog. Those things will make you feel good. And you'll get fit because you'll go for a walk every day. But people go to you, Kellan, because you're going to tell them the truth when other people won't tell the truth. And I think that's one of the biggest things is what you've demonstrated over the years of doing this, and even in your previous life as you were a C-suite executive, is that telling the truth. A lot of people don't want to hear it, but the people like you who do charge a lot for coaching, your private coaching, that's what they get. That any AI model, and really any other coach, they will not get that from them. So.
All right. So the rest of the steps. One, make a real decision. And it's going to take some time in the dark, like Joy said, in your soul.
Yes.
Because, like, for example, if you go to enrollment conversations and you get squirmy when you get to price and stuff, you're not there.
No.
You're not it.
You look away and...
all that noise. So you got to decide if you're willing to do the work. And that isn't, I know what the work is and I'm willing to do that. It is, I'm willing to do the work. I don't give a crap what it is. Yeah. That. Okay. Then read the book and decide where you fit in this. And if you buy it from Joy, you get this cool assessment and all this rest of stuff. And the third thing is get yourself in a powerful coaching container to make those changes. Because if they were simple, obvious, and easy, you'd be there already.
Yeah,
and
you would.
You're not.
No.
So that's it. Decide you're going to read the book, get yourself in a powerful coaching container so that and I say container because they look different. I've got the school, the sovereign architect. Okay. The school of being a sovereign architect where you design and create your life.
Yeah.
I've got the school of transformational coaching specifically for coaches that want to get there. So there is a way to get there. So that's what to do if you want to get to the 5%.
And also, but what about, and people have different skills too. Some people have almost like, I'm not going to call it a gimmick, but it's also something else that people are offering. So it sort of harkens back to the old days of you're combining sort of a vacation, kind of a retreat really, with coaching. Like we know someone who's, mountain climbing and hiking, and that's what she does. And so she takes people on these retreats, and in there, they learn about themselves. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not a mountain hiking kind of person, but I mean, we went to a silent meditation retreat in Tasmania. So I hadn't been to one of those before, but it was really a place where you sit with yourself and you reflect and you think, okay, where do I want to be? Not just, I want to be, high level stuff, but really drill it down. And then you can start to make a plan. You can't make a plan if you're not sitting with yourself quietly and reflecting and saying, even terms of who do I need to be that person? That's not new. That's old. That's stuff that, if to be the $10,000 a month person, you have to be a different person because you're not there. Otherwise you'd be there and doing that, so all this inner stuff is a huge part of this too. And not a lot of people can do it well. Not a lot of people can almost transfer that where that person then embodies that. Like, because how many people, Kellan, you've coached a lot of people and they've done stuff and then they go to the next one because they want, they're going to get something, that frantic, almost jumping from person to person to person, paying, but they're never going to get what they need. Maybe initially they get that high of what they want, but I mean, I'd rather buy a handbag. I'll have it longer than a lot of these transformation things last. So mostly, it just, right? It just
most
becomes
people
weird.
Are looking for a thing. So
they
when
are
you're
looking
saying
for a thing.
Extra skills, one of the skills that I tie into coaching is how to tell stories, how to tell stories. So
Yeah.
whether you're on stage, or whether you're on video,
Yeah.
or whether you're in private conversation, your ability to tell stories is really key. And so that's something I have mastered, and I share that in the context of that becoming. Another thing is how to use video really effectively, because so many people don't know, and so they look weak or confusing or scared or whatever it is on video. And so there's lots of things that you as a coach might know how to do, and you can sell that for a certain price, but as coaching, that's going to disappear. It's a skill set. And if you want to help your people actually change who they're being so that this skill becomes natural and becomes who they are, that elevates them all over the place. You'll get results like crazy. And then that's how you move another way to move into that higher echelon.
You know what it feels like now? It feels like, okay, whoever's listening out there, you 95%, you're done. It really is the 5% who's going to be left.
Well, it is, unless you do something.
Unless
like, you're
you
not
do
dead
something.
today.
No, you have time. Not a lot of time, but start. Got to start somewhere. And it does seem overwhelming, and it's a tall mountain. We get it. There's lots of steps, but step by step by step. Have that plan. And planning, a lot of people do tend to gloss over as just some glorified spreadsheet of something. But years ago, in one of your sessions that you used to group coach in, was, creating a step map. And that takes, for even a small project, an enormous amount of work. But the other thing that it does, once you create this step map, a very detailed plan, is that it erases any ambiguity. It erases any, gee, what do I do next? It erases the procrastination. It gives you what to do next, and next, and next. And guess what? You reach a milestone. Check that off, or do whatever you want to do. Have a dance, go out for dinner. I don't know, whatever it is that you do when you have that result.
Right.
To celebrate, exactly. And it is important to celebrate wins. Absolutely it is. So you certainly need to start with that plan, but you need to know truthfully where you are. And you've said this over and over and over again for many years. People still don't believe it, right? They think that if they just hope and buy another coaching program or talk to another whatever, that somehow they'll get that. But those people who are teaching those, who are doing those programs, and we know them, and they're very successful, and many of them will be around by next December, is that they've figured out who they are, and they're being that person. They are walking the walk, talking the talk. They're the embodiment of that, and that's what makes those people successful. And you guys out there can do it too. I have a commercial. Kellan,
all right,
sorry,
commercial,
before we go,
and then I need your last thought. Okay.
Yeah. Well, this might be a last thought. I forgot to do this in the middle. Okay, so we're talking about story. We're talking about these books. We're talking about this crazy augmented reality technology. We have a challenge coming up on February 23rd to the 27th. It's free. Kellan is going to be with you. We're going to be with you the whole week, an hour a day, and you're going to be fire hosed. We're going to talk about things such as AI and book writing, and how do you get those stories out? How do you create that product from that? So we're going to be doing that. DreamBuildWriteIt.com. DreamBuildWriteIt.com. Register today. You'll start to get those messages and those emails. You'll be able to join our Facebook group by the same name. And Kellan we're very active in there, and we put in all sorts of cool stuff for you. This is different than all of the other challenges that we've done, because we are incorporating that AI piece. We're not going to ignore it. We're not going to say it's stupid or useless or you can't use it in your books, but how do you use it correctly? How do you ensure that it's not just another shite crap AI written book? That does not sell. So, DreamBuildReddit.com.
Joy, I want to thank you. As the co-author, you've given us lots of good stuff. I really, really have enjoyed your energy, your conviction, your insights, and the stuff
Thank
that
you.
you've given us today. So thanks for being here.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, listeners, look, if you've listened to this, you know two things. One, we're really passionate about this. Two, you know that we love you. We're trying to give you success. How to write a book, how to create a coaching practice, how to turn into a coach that has absolute confidence. You're not worried about AI at all because you know you can be that in that place that gives the kind of real transformation that AI can't touch. And it isn't just being a shoulder to cry on. So thank you for being here. And I can promise you, if you're one of these who want to go to the 5%, you can get there. There's work. And how much depends on where you are in the mountain right now, obviously. But you can get there, and then coaching can be one key piece of that magic place, your ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to KellanFluckigerMedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, YourUltimateLife.ca. Subscribe, share,
Stand with your